Cold morning. I wish I could show you guys the view this way, but this is one of my most special, best kept secret spots ever. Love it here. And if I show a true view from here, then the hunting spot chasers will figure it out and they'll come and ruin it for me. But the forest is pretty cool though, right? The rut's slowed down, they've taken a break. Only a few days left in hunting season here. It'll pick up again. They'll rut all the way through January. Off and on. Big guys, they don't stop. Just went and checked a couple trail cameras over here behind me, down the bank. And I didn't bring my bow. I'm like, it's dead. Nothing's moving today. And I'd never seen anything right there anyway. Go over the bank. There's a doe sitting there with her yearlings. So I hung out with them for a while and got a cool selfie and some video. Now, whole bunch of voices to be heard. No shortage of them, that's for sure. We are talking a lot. So maybe I'll just get right into it. Right into it before I freeze. This email is titled Foot Activity. Alright. And I am in quite the hot spot for those people to be here too at the same time where I am right now. Is what it is. Hey Steve, you can use my name or not, your choice. Okay, what's your name? Richard Corliss. Back in the early 2000s, I had this encounter below. Now, at the time, I never had seen a Bigfoot, nor was I convinced they were in fact in the U.S. Though I had previous encounters prior to the one I relate below, and like this one, I didn't know what it was. I was wading a stream trout fishing in the Chattahoochee National Forest in northeast Georgia, in an area not often fished by others. The stream is wide and fairly shallow. I looked downstream and noted a good bend where the water pooled, and I thought, I'll get something there for sure. So, I fished to the upper edge of the pool and eased into the water above my waist and slowly fished to the end of the pool without a hint of a hit. And suddenly, I heard a couple loud splashes at the upper end of the pool behind me. I turned in time to see large granite rocks, literally the size of basketballs, thrown from the bushes and trees on the edge of the bank. I peered into the brush and couldn't see anything, when all of a sudden more rocks the same size came from the bank into the pool. In addition, smaller rocks going into the water. The closer the rocks got to me, and the last few feet from where I was standing, pebbles actually were thrown into the water right next to me. Thought it had to be some rugged rednecks doing this, so aloud I said, "You bastards think you're cute, don't you?" More rocks, as I described above, descended, and all of a sudden I thought of the movie Deliverance. Then I figured discretion was the better part of valor and stepped out of the pool and kept fishing after going a short ways downstream. The reason I've taken the time to write this, and thank you for your part in this, is I finally came to realize there is such a creature as Bigfoot, and I have seen several since, and had numerous other encounters that I didn't see what it was that I can attribute to the foots. I learned early on what ridicule was and kept my mouth shut for a while, and like you, I'd like to figure out what they are. So I finally said, screw them if they don't believe me. Many people have caught me aside and want anonymity, which I guaranteed them, and tell me of sightings, sounds, or strange occurrences they have had. Thank you for bringing this to the light. My theory is they might be relatives of the Nephilim, but of course, I don't know. I agree with you, too, that we should demand accountability from sources that surely have information, more information than the average person. Thank you again, Rick Corliss. Rick, appreciate that, man. You're a smart man. Smart, honest man. Welcome to the club. Yeah, the ones that should know and should tell us should be kept kicked to the curb, and they shouldn't count for anything. Now that we know, right? Now that we know, we know. Now that we know, confirmed that everything is alive. And who has gotten us to this stage of amnesia, right? The people we think we need answers from. Got to turn it around. In a real bad way, big way. I'll save my rant for the end today, maybe. I got a good one, probably. Next that email, man. Email us again. Let us know how your ride's been going. This next one's titled Sasquatch Sighting. Hi, Steve. My name is Mike, and I love the outdoors. I don't hunt, but I love fishing, and when I was young, me and my dad belonged to the Mount Hood Snowmobile Club in Oregon. So I've had several experiences with the beings called Sasquatch, but never visual. But the reason for this email is for one, you, my friend, are awesome, and I find myself addicted to watching your videos on YouTube. You're natural at the camera, and only if you had half the balls that you do, I still wouldn't be the man that you are, so keep up the good work. And this is a story told to me secondhand back while I was taking truck driving classes. Thanks for the kind words, man. It's not I'm an action in front of the camera. It's just that I don't have much respect for the camera. You know what I mean? I just don't have much respect for it from what I've seen when people want to be in front of the camera. Sorry, probably not make any sense. I'll keep my mouth shut for a bit. Appreciate those kind words. I met this guy named Doug, and we hit it off pretty good. So one day I invited over to my house. He loved fishing and wanted to show him my bass boat and all the rods and reels, lures, and so on. And the subject of Bigfoot came up. And he told me he had an incredible experience with the Sasquatch as a young teenager, and this is his story. I was around 16 years old, and I belonged to a Boy Scout group, and we were gearing up for a camping trip into the Willamette National Forest to a lake called Twin Lakes. We're going to be hiking in 5 miles to a pair of mountain lakes. There's 8 of us all together, 2 adult men, and the rest boys. So we get to the parking lot, gear up, and proceed on the trail. We arrive at the first lake and made some lunch, and one of the adults says, "Let's camp here for the night." So we get our tent set up, and then we're off exploring, and there was an outhouse close to the lake, and it looked like brand new. So we checked it out and didn't think much about it. So later on that night, we finished dinner and talked around the campfire for a while. Then we headed off to our tents. We were laying in our tents, and all of a sudden, wham! And again, wham! There were 3 very loud whams, and then silence. Then all of a sudden, again. Me and my friends started talking, saying it's probably the adults trying to scare us, so let's sneak up and scare them. And a couple of the other kids came out of their tents also, and the sound is coming from the outhouse. So we're going to get on our stomachs and make our way up over this little hill, and we had flashlights with us. And when we got close to the outhouse, we were going to jump up and scare the adults on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And when we jumped up and shined the flashlight at the outhouse, boy, were we wrong. It was this massive creature standing next to the outhouse with a very huge branch hitting and tearing up the outhouse. This thing took one look at us and was gone in a flash. I've never seen something so big and move so fast in my life. We headed back to the parking lot in the morning, and we did not want to stay 2 more nights. Even the adult men were scared and worried. Thanks again, Steve, for standing up for little guys. I really hope you keep doing what you're doing, and F those douchebags. Okay, man. You got that right, F them. I wonder how many of those kids or even those adults are here today listening to everybody here. Appreciate that email, man. And it doesn't look it, but it is cold. Let me know if there's a huge buck behind me. This Bigfoot story will shock you. I have a hell of a story for you. And I prefer not to use my name since I'm a scientist. And as you and I both know, this topic is still taboo. It is interest that people who know just know. Peed on in Mendocino, 1975. I was visiting some family friends in Mendocino, north of San Francisco. Their son, about my age, had built a treehouse with his dad between 3 trees and about 20 feet up. It was down by the edge of the property. He asked if I wanted to overnight in the treehouse, and I said, sure. So we grabbed our sleeping bags and climbed up this flimsy ladder. And sometime after midnight, I was awakened and noticed some glowing eyes. And almost smiling face staring at me from the open transom near the top of the roof. First of all, we're 20 feet up, and there was no way a person would be hanging upside down on the outside of the treehouse. I thought it was my imagination, so I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But I was awakened again by a figure standing over both of us. Around this time, I became aware that I was being urinated on. I could hear someone making a kind of a dry laugh, and I thought, is this a person? I reached my left hand out in the darkness and felt his hairy foot. Disbelief, I thought, what is this? It can't be real. Touching his foot made him extremely pissed, and he began screaming and growling, and I could hear his toenails scratching against the plywood floor as he backed up and moved in front of me. He sounded exactly like the Ron Moorhead recordings of the chimp-like sounds. And I spoke to it. I said, what are you? This only made him scream more. Then the mental message I received was, don't touch me or I will tear you apart. At this point, my friend finally awakened, yelled at the animal, and made a sort of a lunging motion toward him. Since he was used to these animals, he knew it could be easily spooked, at least temporarily. What? The creature turned toward the door, and I felt the whole treehouse sway as it jumped the 20 feet to the ground. We could hear him crash to the trees with a long howl. No athlete in the world could take that leap without breaking both legs. I asked my friend, is he gone? And he said yes. For some odd reason, we both went right back to sleep. And in the morning, I was convinced that it was some awful nightmare. When I asked my friend about what happened that night before, he said he didn't want to talk about it. What the hell? I knew it really happened because when we came back up to the house, our parents were saying that we absolutely reeked of urine. Still, since I was only 9 or 10 years old at the time, It took me many years before I could come to the only logical explanation for what happened that night. We had a very close encounter with a young Bigfoot. In retrospect, I find it interesting that I did not react in total fear. And I think part of that was simply not knowing what I was dealing with, but also it seemed to be a young Bigfoot trying to act tough. So in that sense, I didn't really think he would do anything, and it was just a warning. This is God's honest truth. This really happened. Not only that, but I'm very lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. I've seen, heard, and smelled Bigfoot a total of 8 times. I really have no idea why. End of email. Holy shit. That's quite the frickin' story. And as usual, the first thing comes to my mind is, well, how many people woke up and thought to themselves, what should I make up today? I know. Right? Wow. I'm not surprised. Myself, nothing surprises me. I mean, shit, I got peed on by a bear in my underwear one night. Anything's possible. Anything. What a crazy experience. I'd like to hear back from you again. If you want to share a lot more of your knowledge with us, we're here. Open ears. Appreciate that email, man. Especially your buddy. I wonder if he'd like to email us. Contact. This next one is titled Redding, California Incident. Hello, your channel is amazing for what I've tried to get answers for what happened to me a few months ago. I just started getting into the Bigfoot phenomenon. I'm not saying I had an encounter recently, but something weird happened to my dad and I, and my buddy. My dad and I, and my buddy and I a few months ago. I live in Northern California near Redding. I was woken up by my dad. Mind you, he's a huge part of my life and someone to look up to. He served in the Gulf War, got me to jiu-jitsu and some Muay Thai at a young age, around the same time he started. And I've never seen him react in the way that he seemed to be scared, only worried or really pissed off at me. Haha. He woke me up by coming into my room, seeing if my dog, who usually sleeps with me... Okay, I think I read that. Did I just screw up? Yeah, I did. Read it. Sorry. Caught it. This one's not marked as read. This is titled Sasquatch for Steve. Let me tell you about what I saw many years ago. I don't care if you use my name or where this took place. I remember this event like it was yesterday, and I will never forget what I saw. Up close and personal on an early morning walk to the school bus stop when I was 14 years old. I'm now 57 and still have issues with the event when it comes to the woods and being alone in a country setting. Just knowing they exist and are out there. When I say they, I am referring to what we called in Florida the skunk ape. Many know this creature as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or a few other names, and I have no reason to lie. I'm pretty much not a seeker of publicity, nor do I really care too much who believes me and who doesn't. This doesn't matter to me for how I know they exist. I lived in a ranching community in Sarasota, Florida. It backed up to the Mayaca State Park in the outskirts of Sarasota, Florida. It was a place that when you wanted to see your friends or neighbor, there was a lot of pastures between houses. I got up, got ready to go to school. I usually ride my dirt bike to the 3-mile distance to meet the school bus. But I've been showing off doing jumps for my friends, and I bent my front rim by jumping too far and making a crappy landing. So, riding was out of the question. And my stepdad had already left to do the 45-minute drive to work, so only option was me walking to catch the bus. Mom was asleep, and waking her that early was like standing in a cage with a tiger and poking that tiger in the eye with your finger. Not going to happen. I was kind of different from most cowboy kids, you might say. Long hair, and I smoked cowboy killers when I had them. I left early The sun was just coming up, and as I walked, I had forgot my lighter to fire up a smoke. But I remembered that in my wallet I had a couple of safety matches for emergency like this. LOL. About halfway there, I stopped, reached down to get my cigs out of my sock. I grabbed my match out of my wallet. I could see the next house from where I stood, and in their pasture there were a couple lights still on that lighted up the tall grass on the side of their house. Put the smoke in my mouth and bent down to light the match off the asphalt road. And as soon as I lighted the match, I saw a movement in the tall grass. And when I stopped, after a few steps, I saw it stand up. I couldn't believe it. A large, hairy man that I would say, by looking at the telephone poles, was over 8 feet tall. I panicked. I could not move as this creature looked right at me, about 20 yards away or so. It was probably only seconds that we looked at each other, but felt like minutes. It looked at me without any bad intent. Took a few steps forward, then turned and walked away. And as it walked away, it turned its head a few times and looked at me without breaking stride. The creature stepped over a fence, with little effort, disappeared into the woods. I finally got my legs back, and that flight and fear complex set in. I turned and ran faster to my house than I ever ran. Woke up my mom and made her take me to school. I'll never forget the look the creature gave me. It is forever in my soul. When I got to school, I told one of my teachers what happened and why I was late. And he found it incredible. And asked if I would show him where it happened. I said, sure. He was my art teacher and gathered up his camera and plaster Paris. Oh, I guess he knew. When we got there after school, he cast 2 clear prints in the dirt that were over 18 inches long and super thick across. And I'll never forget the look on his face when he walked up to where the grass was matted down. I know what I saw. It wasn't hostile toward me. We probably startled each other just the same, but it was real and still haunts me to this day. Jeff. There you go. And welcome to the club, Jeff. There you go. There's another one. Classic. Lots of kids seen him walking to the bus. Or walking to school. Heard a pack of wolves just across the way there this morning. About an hour ago. Kind of sucks. Little bastards. People say they gotta live too. They gotta eat too. Yeah, they do. But unfortunately, all the logging and the roads that we make helps the population explode. Then they kill everything. And then they die out by starvation. So it doesn't hurt to get rid of a handful when you get the chance. Another topic, another day. Brr, it is cold. I don't know what it is. Minus something. Phone's freezing. Evidence of Sasquatch skinning a deer is the title of this email. Hello, I've sent you an email before, but it's through your business email when you first started telling stories about the North American hominid, so perhaps you missed it with so many other messages. Anyway, here are 2 samples of evidence I believe is quite compelling regarding this hominid. There are many stories in history leading up to these findings, but when they were found, there was a lot of anecdotal evidence in the form of interactions with myself and girlfriend at the time. The deer hide and leg stumped both wildlife biologists and professional hunters alike, and have even compelled some hunters who do it professionally as their business admit that the pelt and leg were sufficient to convince them that such a being existed. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the matter. I was in the Marine Corps in extensive heavy combat, and I'm a survival expert that has spent months in the wilderness, and nothing scared me more than running into these hominids whom, in each experience, are never alone and travel in flanking positions around you when they can easily support one another and ambush you at any given time. It's a humbling and very scary experience to realize you are at their mercy, even when well armed. Thank you, Mateo. The deer pelt. There are no visible serration marks, entry-exit wounds, teeth, or claw marks to suggest who or what did it. The pelt was originally found, wrung up, and dry before I put it in the creek for a couple of days to see it better. I think the fur in the middle was stripped with whatever wrung the hide out. I showed the skin to the park rangers and they told me it was a mountain lion. They told me that last year they found a large black bear further up the canyon in pieces with the hide stripped similarly. And it's a Google Drive link. Is it going to work? Do I have enough internet here? No way, there it is. It worked. Crazy.
Well, this is pretty gross. Just because it's already been smelling a little bit. But the pursuit of evidence. Getting empirical data.
Evidence.
Well, it's as we, I at least believe it's been skinned, it's been ripped. So this is the outside. And the fur, it's like it was grabbed here. I don't know what's going on here. But if you look over here, I'm gonna see if I can show you guys. You can literally see where it was skinned, like just peeled off. Like right there too, it was just ripped out. But here you can see the best, where it's literally been peeled off. I think that's where the neck was. Right here. This is insane. These creatures, when they hunt the deer, it looks like they they literally are able to skin it the way we would a squirrel or a rabbit. Look at that. That's incredible. I'm just awed. I mean, the evidence keeps building up. I'm gonna let this dry here and take another look at it again. But yeah, look, you can see here it was ripped for the other leg, and this one's clear ripped off. A person didn't do this.
I don't know, man. I think I can download it. That. Save it to my phone so I can put it on the video. Alright, so what I can tell you guys, my first video is it doesn't matter what the animal is, the fur slips. It's called the fur slips, falls off. And it can happen basically sometimes within hours, depending on how hot it is, how cold it is. So like as an example, we've had moose, we shot them at last light and it's been cold out. We'll come back first thing in the morning to resume butchering them, and where the body is laid on the ground, that underside of their body, the fur just comes right off. All right, and the same with, I've had taxidermist friends of mine try to get me to tell everybody this. If you ever skin a bear out, then you leave the skull and everything inside the hide and roll it up. If you roll that head up inside the hide with the head in the middle and all the heat still, and put it in the freezer, it'll cause the fur to slip and fall out. That little amount of heat. But as far as saying a large 10, 12 foot, 9 foot tall hairy human did that, I don't know how you come up with that. Myself, not being insulting, I'm just saying. Who knows? Don't know. Don't know. What else we got? Deer leg. Hope this opens up. Okay, got another video. Here we go. What is this?
Well, here we have the bone. It's a little older now, but just so you can see what an incredible piece of evidence this is. So if you look at it, this is the ligaments. It's only hanging on by the ligaments.
Yeah, sorry, man. I'm gonna have to pass on that.
It was ripped. Or broken off with hands, or something without teeth. As you can see, there are no.
To be honest, it's not that common to find teeth marks on a leg bone, right? You know, sometimes you see the teeth marks on ribs, for sure. The end of the ribs, will chew them back. Teeth marks on the edge of the scapula, the shoulder blade. But the leg bones, not really, because they ripped that meat off of there. Whatever ate that, killed that deer, left the tendons on. It's no big mystery there. But typically, you're not going to find teeth marks and leg bones. These wolves here, they'll crush the deer leg bone right in half. They'll eat the whole thing. Gone. Toes, sometimes they eat the toes, sometimes they spit them out. I've found the ball joint from bighorn sheep, the ball joint from the upper, you know, the ball joint that goes in the socket in the hips. Found that much bone with the ball on it in a wolf's gut. You can believe what they can eat, but
literally entirely that could do this. My goodness. I'm waiting to see when they drop something else off. Still trying to figure out why. So what's so impressive about this bone is that it's fairly recent, and you know, the whole leg was just hanging from a tree. And you know, some animals do go for the bone marrow, just like this one has, and like they'll bite it out. But the thing is here is that there's no evidence of any teeth marks on here to break this. It was almost like it was grabbed and just broke, snapped. And this is right pretty close to where the deer hide was. So my hypothesis is that this, you know, a North American hominid ape is to credit for being able to do this, being able to break like bone like this. The evidence keeps piling up. So here's something you don't see every day. All these trees have literally been brought and stacked up against this large one. These are huge trees, especially this aspen right here. And we're kind of in the middle of nowhere where we have found huge bear tracks. There's a creek right here. You can see like lots of bear come through this area. But yeah, this is insane. I don't know. Don't know what to make of this, but as you can see, they're really large. Just to give you a comparison of my hand in comparison to this one that's been moved. The other ones are smaller but still very big. Wow.
Evidence. People looking for evidence. The evidence stacks up. If you listen to all the people, we're well beyond needing any kind of evidence. That's for sure, right? But I'm not trying to take anybody's enthusiasm away, and I appreciate that share. Appreciate it. Being a professional hunting guide, there's no big mystery of those 2 chunks of meat you found. Now, if you had seen a large, hairy human ripping and tubing the hide off of something, now that'd be something else there, wouldn't it? You never know, but who knows? Obviously, they eat deer. They eat a lot of stuff, different stuff. My Sasquatch, Sierra Nevada story. It's the title of this email. Man, I'm cold. I'm gonna have to get going. My name is Alex, and this is my Sasquatch story. I think the year is about 2011. It's the beginning of December, and I was about 27 years old. I was in the Calaveras County, Calaveras County area, doing a little solo backpacking about 2.5 days out north of Camp Connell area. The middle of nowhere is an understatement. It was getting dark fast. I made a fire and was going to have a can of chili before I lay down for the night. The night was really quiet. So quiet you could hear something coming a good quarter mile away. And as I had the chili on the fire warming up, I sat there pretty still, tired from the day's hike and cold from the winter air, bundled up in the one blanket brought along for the hike with basically only my face exposed. And all of a sudden I got this really bad odor in the air. It smelled like dead carcass, and it almost gave you a headache instantly, so bad. I was confused because there was so little to no wind. So where was this smell coming from? I checked the fire and even the bottom of my boots, trying to figure out the location. While doing so, I heard what sounded like a log being smacked against a tree a good half mile away. Not a branch breaking or a tree falling, but a log being smacked against a standing tree. Clunk, clunk, clunk. My hair stood up. I thought, what the hell was that? I was days away from even being close to where someone could possibly be. The sound came from my far 2 o'clock position. Before I could even finish thinking what the hell that could have been, I hear another big heavy log whacking against a tree, but now coming from my 7 o'clock and also a lot closer. I was wide-eyed, frozen in place. Something was communicating to each other, and I was caught right in the dead middle. I grabbed my knife and sat there as quiet as I could be, even though my fire, now burnt chili, was a signal enough of my presence. The odor went away and I didn't hear anything after I sat frozen for a good 20 minutes. Ooh, it's cold. Needless to say, I headed back that morning. I got back and did some research of similar noises in the area, and it turns out there has been more than a handful of Sasquatch sightings there, which I was not aware of, dating back to the 1800s. I have not seen a Sasquatch firsthand, but I firmly believe whatever made that knocking sound wasn't hitting branches against trees. This sounded like a small tree being whacked against a larger tree. Very, very deep sounding. Something had to have been large and strong enough to make those sounds. I've done many solo hikes in my life and heard many branches and trees fall. Nothing like this. Still to this day. There you go. You know what it was. Okay, I got one more short one. I'm going to read this one. I am getting frozen. I got a little too sweaty this morning, and I hate getting sweaty because then you get wet, and then when you sit, you absolutely freeze. Thanks for your time. Hey, Mr. Steve, I know you don't have much time for much, but I had to contact you somehow. I'll keep it quick. I won't tell you about myself right now, other than I am 19 years old and I'm wanting to guide hunts as a career. Anyhow, if there's any way possible I can scout with you for a month or longer in your off time from hunts, please let me know. I'll pay for my own gear, flight, food, whatever it takes. I'll work my ass off and help you do whatever you could possibly need with help with. I'm great with the camera and I'll pack anything you need. You don't have to pay me to do anything. I'm just craving to learn and take in everything I can. I know you're coming and going a lot, but if there's even a slight break, I can come up and scout or hike with you. I'd jump on it. If you're interested slightly in it, contact me whenever you want and let me know. I'm a kid. I gotta get my shit together. I'd love to learn from what I'd call the best. I'll pay my own way and help you in any way. If you're not interested / don't have the time, just let me know in a reply anyway so I can know you've read my email and I'll stop bugging you about it. If you made it to the end of the message, thank you so much for your time and thanks for sharing such good information and your wisdom. Dustin Fincher. Dustin, this is a while back. I don't know if you're still here, my man, but listen, anybody out there, if you want to get into what I used to do, or a lot of people still do, if you're young with that kind of enthusiasm, you'll get snatched up. All you got to do is get online, find some big game hunting outfits. I would strongly suggest the clues for a good big game hunting outfit is usually when they have a plane and horses. When you got a guide, when you can guide with vehicles, for me it's like, no thanks. And you're in competition with the public. You want to get in the remote middle of nowhere with experienced mountain men and women, horse people, and you get signed on as a wrangler first, which is like basically a laborer. and you will be in for the time of your life. So that's all you got to do. Get hold of a bunch of big game outfits in the north, Yukon, Northwest Territories, BC, Alberta. Tell them you want to go play. That's a low-flying, loud plane. I'm not going to share any more emails. I'm too cold. But I shared a video. I couldn't sleep last night. I'm lacking some sleep. Big time, but... And I turned something on. I saw Candace Owens saying she needed some person to get out to the public, and she interviewed a man. What a story. So I shared it on the community page, and it was about... It was the USS Liberty. And an eyewitness who survived the attack on that ship and what went down. Do I believe the guilty party's guilty in that attack? 100%. 100% from what I've looked into in the past, what I realized to be as true, absolute guilt for sure. Isn't it funny when they hide the truth in plain sight from the people, right? If you don't think it's true, if you think that gentleman is lying, you should probably check yourself, but all you have to do at this stage of the game right now, all you have to do is look in the past history if you got the time, and all you have to do is look for past examples of military personnel or civilians being used as sacrificial lambs. It's in your face, right? Multiple times. Right up to the CVID thing, right? Cuba, 9/11, more than likely the Vegas shooting, right? Bunch of evidence there. All sorts of crazy ass shit. There's no secret that various governments have offered up killing their own to trigger a war. It's a proven fact. There's actually a term for it. What's even more alarming is how the guilty party has successfully made it law. Was it law? They've made sure that all the American students learn about October 7th at school. If you know anything about Israel and their border, the technology they use on their border is one of the strongest borders in the world. They say October 7th was intentional. Teach their own. Would I believe that is intentional myself from what I've been watching, observing, learning, and hearing? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a bunch of real crazy shit going on, you guys. Bunch of real crazy, dark shit. Sad, it's unfortunate. It's a crazy ass lifetime. Right? For all you who have managed to break free of the mainstream and think for yourself. Right? You can think for yourself. And you look and you take it all in and you go with your gut and your instincts. And you know what honest, good honest people are and aren't. And I know there's a whole bunch of you here. What a crazy ride this is, right? What a crazy ass ride. Anyway, don't look away from the truth, you guys, alright? There's so much going on, it's in our face, and so many people look away. It's so weird. So weird. It actually triggered my ass. I got triggered, I'll admit it, I got triggered. I replied to a comment, saw a comment underneath that post I put on the community page. Somebody went, out of that man's testimony of the horror of waving at those Israeli planes as they flew low, taking pictures of the crew, and they waved and waved back to their allies, and then they came back and attacked and bombed and shot the living shit out of them. They were shooting men out of the life rafts. I don't even know what I was going to say there, but, oh yeah. Somebody actually listened to the video, listened to that man's testimony, And all they got out of that was to comment and go, "Oh, you gotta be careful with Candace Owens." Really? It's just another example of how such a tragic, unbelievable, disgusting event went down. Where if you heard it for the first time, you should probably be absolutely shitting yourself, emotional. But nope. Out of all that testimony and all those poor American boys, soldiers getting shot to rat shit in lifeboats, burned, blown up, shot at, the backup was cut loose to come and save them and pulled away from saving them. And out of all that testimony, somebody's initial reaction is, "Well, you gotta be careful that Candace Owens, you know." Holy shit. Right? But that's how they get us, right? That's how they get us to where we are now. So many people absolutely right over their head. Anyway, what am I going to do now? I got to get out of here. I am frozen. Let's get to see if I can stick it out, climb a mountain. But I'm so familiar with hunting here. I know exactly what the bucks are doing, and they've all gone higher. And they've all did it in the last 3 days. I tracked a few of them. I've tracked them in the past, and there isn't enough time for me to go to where they're going. All I got to do is maybe hope they decide to come back down, but probably not. Typically, right now, there should be about 18 inches, 2 feet of snow right where I'm sitting right now. And then when there's that much snow, then this elevation, it's gangbusters. It's crazy, intense hunting all around in this timber. But there's a few deer sprinkled around here, but the majority of them are still way, way up there. Like you'd have to bring a tent and go up after them if you're motivated. So I got one more day. Probably I'll make up a plan for tomorrow somehow, and then after that I got to go to my friend's wake. See a whole bunch of people I haven't seen for a while. And I will be back. But anyway, closing words, don't be scared of anything or anyone. Speak the truth and don't be scared to speak it. Alright? No matter how hard it is or how hard it sounds, just speak it. You see it, you learn it, you repeat it. Alright? Don't be scared. Don't be scared. I'll be back.